Welcome to another episode of YouTube, where not only do we have snow, but we have colder weather, and that means the wolves are diving into their carcasses. This is Grayson with a deer blood face, so we always watch who eats and what they eat, but it might mean that we have supplemental food available at that time, and obviously Denali is typically the one who gets the food, so we always try to make sure that we have adequate amount of resources for the more timid animals. Denali actually holds his status quite a bit because he is so food possessive, so he can control the situation quite a bit, even though his body is showing signs of weakness. His mind and his ability to dominate circumstances, especially food, are pretty strong in the pack. So everything's white, everything's cold. You might see that we have started giving some cover hay on top of the pump housing. And height on these pump housing and dens are not only important from getting a sun vantage point where they can rest in the sun, but also it means a little bit of power. And Grayson is using some of that higher vantage point to get himself taller. He expresses or vocalizes from there, and will oftentimes posture over whoever is also resting on top of the pump housing or on top of the den to try to be able to gain status. So Bolts likes having that cover hay. Again, normally in the wild, wolves are burrowing into snow, but in captivity you have compacted snow. It loses its insulating value. So we always give some kind of cover hay to give them a little bit of insulation, a little bit of radiant heat absorption from the sun on these colder days. Dens are also filled with hay, and Bolts does like to have the comfort of the den. He'll often bring food in there, and he can defend it without too much issue, and that's the work that we're doing. The Luna fundraiser we just had was on the back side of that den, and we are starting to haul rock actually next week. We were going to do it today, but it was only a high of 11 degrees today, so long-term forecast has us in the 20s by the end of the week. So we've got all the rocks selected. We just need to start moving it around. So as you can see, the pack is pretty active, tail wagging, a little bit of excitement, a little bit of intimidation there by Denali, where he puts his ears sideways, and that what we call airplane ears, and their Bolts just comes and cuts the other wolves off. So he blocks the wolves from Denali. Again, that's a really important role that middle ranking wolf has. That's why we manage a 3 age structure in the pack, and if Denali is lucky, he will be here when the 4th age structure comes in. Well, that'll be the first time that'll have happened here at the Wolf Center to have 4 age structures. But we do recognize his age is going to catch up with him. So we are really mindful of that. And we're watching the movements of these two. That's Grayson on top of the pump housing. And notice how his tail is straight out and a little bit higher versus Axel on the bottom has more of a crook to the tail, dropping a little bit. Just that height difference alone means that in that circumstance, Grayson has a little bit more power than Axel does. And he's using that power to do something like a chin rest, where he's resting his head on Axel's back to try to show a little bit more posturing. And they go back and forth between that. And notice how Grayson's tail is maintaining that kind of straight back T2 posture, whereas Axel's is slunk down a little bit lower. And we've been watching this for a while. Axel has a tendency to be very outgoing and very interactive with staff, and even testing staff a little bit, jumping on them, grabbing them, nipping at their coats, that kind of thing. And Grayson's a little bit more reserved, and so oftentimes he sits back and watches, and he doesn't always get as much staff interaction. But lately, he's been kind of targeting and focusing certain staff and getting some positive reinforcements and greetings that seems to be giving him a little bit more confidence, and then the end result is seeing a little bit more dominance there. So over in the retirement, we talked a lot about Luna in our last webinar, and some people had expressed some concerns that they didn't want to see Luna suffer, and so we clearly don't as well. That's a concern that we have. So we're really monitoring her, and our parameters are if she's alert, if she's interacting with the staff, and she's socially interacting with her pack mates and fellow pack. We know that she's feeling okay, and that we've again got a good control on the treatment for this terminal condition. And the other day I was cleaning out some scraps in the wolf lab here, and I had a piece of omega-3 tablet that I nobody had taken. And so I brought it in, and lo and behold, Luna starts scent rolling on it, and what I noticed, she was scent rolling on the side of her neck where the growth was, and she didn't seem to be too impaired by putting pressure on that. And so she continued to scent roll, and she was able to roll over on her back and to really kind of enjoy that marking behavior. That was pretty important. Again, we want to know how she's dealing with this growth. It is now protruded over her shoulder blade, up into her neck, and then into her spine. And so until we started the anti-inflammatories, we noticed she was really having a hard time shaking her head and reaching down, and certainly wouldn't have been able to roll over like that. So we know we've got a good combination of medication that helps her manage the pain and the discomfort. And so we were pretty pleased about that, and she seemed to be pretty pleased with herself to be able to go down into a scent marking position. And the other image that I showed you was from today, where Wolf Care staff greeted her and she was able to roll over on her back. So, we're really, really mindful of the pain. We have a USDA approved management plan for euthanasia, but we want to make sure that we're making the right decision for her. And she is, at this point, she's still got that spark in her eye, and she's still Luna. And even though during the day we see her resting quite a bit on the cover hay on the dens, she still wants to interact. She's still eating extremely well, and she's still using her sensory abilities. This is a behavior called a face wipe, where she had a little bit of that omega-3 on her face from rolling, and so she's trying to wipe it off on the hay. And that's really, even though that seems like a very insignificant behavior, it's really important that she's able to move her neck like that, and that's a real good sign for us. The other retiree, Grizzer, has some news. If on the 15th of November, he will have reached the status of being the oldest wolf here. The oldest wolf that we have had managed here since we started in 1989 was Lakota. Lakota was euthanized at 6 months and 10 days, and Grizzer just reached 6 months on November 5th, and his plus 10 days will be November 15th. So on the day that the organization celebrates the Give to the Max Day on November 14th, we'll also be celebrating the eve of Grizzer's milestone as being the oldest wolf we've managed here. So if you want to join us for Give to the Wolves Day, check our website at wolf.org. We'll actually be broadcasting 4 times on that day at 7 a.m. For a morning howl from the exhibit pack. Again at noon for a wolf enrichment. 4 o'clock we'll have a special one-on-one Q&A for Luna and Grizzer. And then again at 10 o'clock a wrap up at the end of the day. So hope you can join us at wolf.org, and we'll see you next time.